For this next unit, you're going to have two choices for your first project here to kind of learn the basics of the type tool. This is your first option. The abstract letter composition project is pretty straightforward. You're going to make five compositions. 4 of them will be small 3.5-inch squares, and then they'll do one large 7.5 by 10-inch rectangle composition. I want you to experiment with the way the type is displayed. It's not about spelling out words. It's about just letting the type become shapes or texture, and you're just sort of playing around with making an interesting balanced composition with those shapes. You're going to learn kind of the basics of the guides and grid with this project as well, and how to use all the different functions of the type tool. Here's some examples of small compositions and what you can do. Most of these are done using just simple rotated letters that are white or black. The reason there's such an abundance of these is because this is an extremely common exercise for graphic designers to participate in, to kind of get acquainted with the design qualities of letters and how to place letters. If you don't like my demonstration video, there is a tutorial available. This tutorial will walk you through everything that I kind of go over in the video, except much slower and with text and pictures. Here's some more examples with a lot more variation to them and a lot of other colors. I kind of want you to stick to black and white. Some of these could be considered large compositions since they include more letters and are a bit more complex. Here's some examples of what I would expect for your final large composition. I want you to get really complex and add tons and tons of letters. Really fill the space. Use text as a texture. It can have sort of a visual rhythm and texture to it if you allow it to, or you use area type. Of course, the real-world application of arranging type in such a playful way like this is that some designs call for that sort of playful application of type. Some clients do not necessarily care if you're experimental. They might be looking for that in their work. It's also kind of healthy to keep this in mind when you're looking for a creative solution to a problem, because often it's the type that gets neglected, and you can do an awful lot of expressive things with type if you sort of let it become this visual thing instead of content, which is often what it's treated as. Your second choice for this first project in the type unit is to make a typographic portrait. You're going to only make one artwork for this, and you're going to basically transform a portrait, a photographic portrait of somebody, into just letters and type. You're going to use all the different kinds of typesetting functions of the type tool, and then you need to fill at least 3/4 of your paper with the portrait. So you can leave a little bit of the background blank, but try to use as much of the portrait as you can, or find a portrait that has a visible face and consumes most of the picture plane. I will walk you through at the end of this video kind of how to set type. There's also a tutorial that shows you how to set type. There's a lot of creative freedom with how you approach this project. This is a student example, not my particular student, but it shows the wide range of how you can set type and what you can do to type to kind of represent parts of the face. The rest of this slideshow here is just examples of different kinds of type portraits, so kind of look through it for inspiration, and then stick around for the demonstration video to see kind of how to set type. For your abstract letter composition, you have to do 4 small 3.5-inch square compositions, and then you have to do 1 large 7.5-inch by 10-inch rectangular composition. So I'm going to kind of walk you through briefly how to use the type tools and set up your compositions. This tutorial will show basic typesetting, and it'll show you a brief stopover to the type portrait assignment, and the only reason for this is because the two assignments are pretty similar and they use a lot of the same tools. So if you're confused as to which assignment this is demonstrating, it's demonstrating both assignments. But the first one I'm going to demonstrate is the abstract letter composition. So you have the PowerPoint in your project folder. You also have this abstract letter composition tutorial. Make sure you refer to this if I kind of lose you on something. This will walk you through step by step exactly everything else I showed you and want you to do. So make sure you refer to that if you're having trouble. First things first, you need to make a new file with 2 artboards. I'm actually going to start over, so I'm going to make a new artboard. So initially when you create a file, you usually have 1 artboard. You can tell it to make more than 1, but if you ever need to make another artboard, just use the artboard tool. It's down here in the toolbox, lower left hand corner. Looks like a rectangle with little crop marks on the end of it. If you click on the artboard tool, your artboards will be the only thing active, and your options bar will change at the top of your screen. You want to press the new artboard button. It looks like a little sticky note pad, and when you float over your scratch area, you'll notice that you'll be able to click to create an artboard. Okay, so I'll make one artboard like this, and then I'm going to make another artboard, except I'm going to hit the landscape option, and that's actually going to change the orientation of my artboard. If you want to change it back, just select it and then hit portrait. You can also click on an artboard and designate where it is by the X and Y coordinates, and you can change the preset, or you can give it a name. And then depending on whether or not you have the move artwork with artboard option checked, you can actually move your artwork with your artboard, which can be kind of handy from time to time if you really need to reorganize your space. So to switch out of the artboard tool, you got to click on another tool. There is no escape option, so just click on your regular select tool and you'll be done and ready to go. Okay, so for the abstract letter composition assignment, you're going to have to set up 4 3.5-inch squares. So to do that, I'm just going to make some guides here, 1/2 inch from the edge here. Looks like my guides aren't visible, so I'm going to turn those on. Okay, and we've already got some guides here, so I'm just going to make those unlocked. I'm just going to delete the extra guides. Okay, and then relock them. Alright, you just need, I believe, what is it, like a 1/2 inch gutter here? Yeah, or a 1/4 inch gutter in the middle. So I'm just setting up guides. Since they're 3.5-inch squares, the distance between this and this is 3.5 inches. Okay, and I will just use this to kind of guide where my squares are and center them in the page. You don't have to create guides if you don't want to, but if you want to create a perfect 3.5 by 3.5-inch square and you're not going to use guides, what I recommend you do is go to your rectangle tool and just click once. And what you'll find is that a little dialog box will open. This will allow you to enter 3.5 inches for the width and 3.5 inches for the height, and then you can click OK. And that'll make you a perfect 3.5-inch square. So if you're not going to use guides to set up 3.5-inch squares using your ruler here, you're going to have to use the dialog box method to create a perfect square. And again, to turn on your rulers, that's Control R. Okay, turn on your grids, that's Control apostrophe, and all of that functionality is in the View menu. So rulers are over here. You can hide guides, lock guides, or clear them here, and you can also turn on Snap to Grid if you want. Now I've got my one square made. I'm just going to copy it 4 times since I need 4 of these. Okay, and now I'm going to walk you through how to do some typesetting. To create type, you just use the type tool. To create type on a point, you click once. That will give you an active cursor, and wherever you clicked, it will create 1 point in space. Now, if I start typing random letters here, okay, it will continue on into infinity unless I hit enter and start typing again. Okay, so you have to be kind of careful with type on a point. It's literally type starting from a point and continuing on forever. If you want to change your font, it's simple to change your font. Just highlight text, okay, and then up here in the options bar you have the option to change it. I have a bunch of weird fonts downloaded, so don't expect to have some of these fonts on your computer. Just kind of make do with the default fonts. There's not an easy way for me to download and change fonts on your computer, although on a regular computer you can do that. You have administrative privileges. You can change the font family for a particular font, and you can change the point size up here as well. Now, if you're not getting enough options from this, an easy way to change the font that gives you kind of a good preview of the font is to right-click on the highlighted text and then go to the font option, which will bring up a preview of every single kind of font you own and the name of that font, so that we can make a more informed selection. Okay. Now, another option available to you is to use the character panel. If you don't see the character panel, go to Window, and then there's actually kind of a special thing here. There's Type, and then there's a bunch of options here. If you open one of them, it opens kind of a group of other options. The character panel has a lot more available choices for you. You really don't have to worry about these too much, but again, the same options are available. Change the font family, and you can change how far up it is, how wide the font is, all that stuff via this panel. Okay, another option available to you is to create area type. So type on a point continues on forever. Area type only stays within the area that you designated stay in. So to create area type, you can click and drag, and that will create a box for you. And then inside that box, whenever you type and reach the end, it'll start a new line for you. Now, if you type too much, your type will be overset. Okay, so you can't really see that type unless you make your box bigger. And you're going to realize none of your hotkeys are going to work while you're typing either. So you'll have to manually switch to your selection tool by clicking on the toolbox, or using Control to toggle from your type tool to the last selection tool you use to deselect your active type and start a new type area, or use a hotkey to switch tools. That can be a little frustrating at first, so you might just want to go to your toolbox every time you need to switch tools, unless you're really comfortable with toggling between your type tool and your selection tool with the Control key. Area type has a lot of advantages over type on a point. It scales to the form that it is inside of, so I can scale these lines of text here to fit my box of text. Okay, I can also make pretty much any basic shape area type. So if I go to my shape panel here and I want to make a circle full of type, I just make a circle. Okay, and then go to my type tool and hover over that circle and click, and then voila, that becomes area for area type. Okay, so you can get really creative with the area type tool. One thing you'll notice is that if I rotate this circle, the type doesn't rotate with it. The same thing goes for this. Area type does not affect the orientation of the type, unlike type on a point. If I were to rotate type on a point, it rotates. Okay. The reason for this is because area type is meant to flow with the container it is inside. So if you want it to be kind of diagonal like that, it will let you be diagonal and keep your type readable, which is an advantage over type on a point. The last kind of type I'm going to show you how to use is kind of common. I don't use it too often though, and that's type on a line or a path. Type on a path is real easy. You got to make it path first. So I'm going to take my pen tool and create kind of a wavy line here, and then I'm going to go back to my type tool, and then when you hover your type tool over type on a path, it gives you this little line crossing through the cursor, and that gives you the option to create type on a path. And notice it conforms to the path. Again, if you type more than you have space for, it will become overset type. To mess with the constraints of this, you can either continue drawing your path, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Or you can set the brackets further away. So these brackets are on the ends of your type on a path. Okay. You may not be able to see them here, but when you hover your cursor or your regular select tool over these, it'll change into a new kind of cursor that will show you that it's over a bracket. Wherever you put this bracket is wherever the text ends on that path. So you can set a start point on the path, and you can set an end point. You can also flip your text to the bottom of the path using the middle cursor here, and you can set the center of it with that middle cursor as well, if you have your paragraph set to centered. Okay, so just play around with those. That's type on a path. Again, if you rotate this, it will rotate with the object. The only way to truly rotate the last bit of type here, area type, would be to go to the free transform tool. If you click on that tool and rotate an object like area type, it will rotate, and then your type will be completely reoriented that way, and no matter what you do to your box, it will stay oriented that way. Okay, again, that's the free transform tool. Okay, so now that you've got kind of the hang of just sort of the basics of type, creating type, I'm going to show you how to set type in a bit more creative ways and kind of show you more things about that character panel here. The character panel has an awful lot of options, and a lot of those options have to do with the nature of how type is set. So if I fill this with a bunch of gibberish here, okay, I can set this type any way I want. I can, in the character panel, turn down the point size. And again, if you don't see the character panel, you might want to go to Window, Type, Character to open it. I can change the font. I can change a lot about it. Okay, but there are a ton of other options in here. One of the first options is tracking. Tracking is the space between lines of text in a paragraph. I believe, or no, yeah, that's leading. Sorry. Leading is the space between lines in a paragraph. Tracking is actually the space between individual letters. So if I turn up the tracking, the space between all my letters, as you can see here, will get really, really far apart. I don't know if you can quite see that. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay. So this is kind of a cool way to make type kind of like texture. Alright. If I want to, I can also change the orientation of the type or the relationship of the type to the baseline. Turn that up. I can use the warp commands to kind of like increase the width of type. I would not do this too often. Warping the type kind of eliminates the designer's original intent for the design. So if you stretch type or warp it like this, it's highly taboo in design circles. It's not very common, and it's not very flattering to the font. I'm not going to go into the other options, but you're more than welcome to play around with them. Now that we've got our kind of basic functions down, I'm going to show you some other cool tricks. Okay, one option you might want to screw around with besides all these other options is expanding type to create outlines so that you just have individual letters or shapes. And this is kind of the majority of what I want you to play around with when you're doing your abstract letter composition. Once you find some pleasing letter forms that you want to work with, right click on that type, and then one of your options will be to create outlines. That will make all of the type uneditable. It will become a shape. So I can't go back here, I can't go back with my type tool and highlight this or make it, you know, a different font or anything, or a different point size. It's just a shape now. Usually when you do this too, all the type becomes a group. So if I check my layers panel here, it's a group at the top of my layer here. You're going to want to right click on it again and ungroup those objects so that you have individual letters to play around with. And then you can do a lot of fun things with these. You can scale them with your selection tool, you can rotate them, you can kind of do whatever. You can warp them a little bit if you want. Okay, have fun kind of arranging your type and chaotic arrangements. For both assignments, the abstract letter composition tutorial and the type portrait, you can do this, and it creates a lot of awesome black shapes for you. Another thing you can do is you can change the color of your type to white. The only two options I will kind of allow are kind of black and white here. And then yeah, just have fun, play around with it. It's a lot easier to mess around with type as shape instead of thinking of it as content. So just play around with the type as shape. Okay, let's say you've got your type all arranged for an abstract letter composition, or let's say you're making your type portrait and you kind of want to like crop or delete some parts. I'm going to show you how to make a clipping mask here. This is really useful for the abstract letter composition. In fact, I think I require it in the assignment criteria, so you know, you'll have to do it. But for the type portrait, you can use it too in creative ways if you want. So I've got my abstract letter composition here, and I've got these little bits of the letters hanging outside of this square. To create a clipping mask with this square, the square shape needs to be on top of my letters here. So I'm going to select that object, and you can do one of two things. You can go Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, or you can use the hotkey, which is Shift Control right bracket key. So I just clicked Bring to Front. That means this object is on top of my letters. So if I select everything and I right click on it, one of my options is to make a clipping mask. If I click on that option, notice that it clips all of the extra parts of my letters that were outside of my square. Okay. If you want to see the border again, just highlight your clipping mask and you'll see a special option bar option up here. You can edit the clipping path, or you can edit the compound path inside of it, the contents. I'm going to edit my clipping path, and I'm going to give that a black stroke so that we can see it. And then if I go to my contents here, I can click on those and move those around. Another easy way to do that is to double click on this, and that will allow you to edit these in isolation mode. So if I want to bring my N down, I can do that in isolation mode. I would, if I were you, let some of my letters run off of the edge here. It doesn't look good to keep them all huddled in the middle, kind of like they're animals in a farm pen. You want to kind of push beyond the composition. If you want to add anything else to this group, you can click and drag it into that clipping mask group in the layers panel. Okay, just make sure they're visible so that you don't lose them. So if you want this N to be a part of the clipping mask group, as you can see in the layers panel here, it's not part of that group, but if I click and put it in that group, it's suddenly in the clipping mask group. Okay. Okay, for the abstract letter composition tutorial, I want you to use all the different kinds of typesetting options I went through, and I want you to create 4 small compositions, and then you need to create one big one that is 7.5 by 10 inches. Okay. This composition should be your most complex of the 5 and should have the most going on. Again, it can be abstract, so don't feel like you have to make it look like something. That's kind of for the other assignment, the abstract, or the type portrait. Some special notes for the type portrait. What I would recommend you do is, again, insert an image file and put that on a separate layer for you to trace. You kind of know how to do that by now, hopefully. Again, File, Place, and then place a picture that you want to work on. Turn down that picture's opacity, okay, and lock that layer so that you can trace it. Use all of the available tools, okay? You have type on a path, you have area type, you have expanding letters. Use all of these to kind of create a representational portrait of whoever it is you chose. I would, if I were you, use a lot of copy and pasting to kind of like create dense areas of type. So if I want to take some area type over here and really shrink this, I could create, I guess, some texture, okay, and that would fill in that kind of dark area that is my hair. So if I copy this a bunch of times, I'll create some dark texture here. Alright, obviously I'd want to change the font for this to make it a little bit more interesting, or use words that are relevant to me or the subject I'm depicting. That's kind of up to you whether you use gibberish for the type portrait or not. I don't really care. It's more creative to use words that are relevant to the person in the portrait. One last thing I'm going to show you for the type portrait, in addition to how to set type and just set up your letters here, is I'm going to show you how to use an envelope distort. You can use this for the abstract letter compositions as well, but this is a little bit more relevant to type portrait, and some of my examples I had this were showing this kind of distortion technique as well. First things first, you want to create some type, okay, and I would try to keep the type simple and big and bold. The bolder it is, the bigger it is. Usually the more obvious the warp is, and that can help you with the appearance of certain parts of your portrait. So, you know. Okay, so if I got my type here, envelope distorts are really easy to create. Go to Object, Envelope Distort, and then you can make it with the warp or with the mesh. I recommend, if you're just starting out with envelope distortion, to make it with the warp. Warps are presets. Just check the preview box, and this first warp option style is called an arc, and I can change how sudden the arc is if I want. I can change the distortion from horizontal to vertical. Okay, got a lot of options here. There's a bunch of different presets that you can mess around with. Whenever you're happy with it, just click OK. And then the option panel up here will give you the same options again. If you want to open up your envelope options, just bring it up here and you can mess with that, or you can change the percentages up here as well. Another thing you can do with envelope distortion is you can go to your direct select tool, and if you click on the actual envelope, you can take the envelope direction points and warp those as much as you want. They have handles just like you know, anchor points would, and you can really play around with the type there. This is handy for creating shapes that fit weird sections. So like if I wanted to make a shape that fit my collar, I could make an envelope match that collar shape if I wanted to. It can be kind of tedious because you have to sort of sit there and drag your points around and really make the envelope fit the shape, but you can make some really cool results if you have the patience to sit there and kind of play around with it. I'm not going to sit here and make it match my collar perfectly, but you kind of get the idea as it's sort of slowly coming over here. Alright, that's just something that's a little bit more advanced for people who are kind of not as enamored with the whole typesetting thing. This is just a creative option that's available to you at any time. When you're done with either assignment, no matter which one you choose, make sure you put your name on it and hand it in, and then we'll move on to some way more advanced concepts in this unit.